If you ask anyone who is the richest person in the world, everyone will point at Jeff Bezos. But the truth is, if you take a look at their investments portfolios, Bill Gates is still significantly wealthier than Bezos, and that is not going to change anytime soon. Bill Gates will remain the richest man in the world. Before you throw at me angry comments, hear me. Gates first joined the Forbes billionaires list in the 1987, when he was just 32 years old. But he wasn't going to stay there for long. In the next few years, he climbed to the top of the list, and in the 1995, he became the world's wealthiest person, and held that title until 2017, except 4 of these years when Warren Buffett and Carlos Slim exceeded him. Most people think that Gates' wealth comes from the Microsoft, which is not true. Yes, he founded the company with Paulo Allen and was the CEO, but in 2000 he left his positions and handed his job to Steve Ballmer. At the peak of the dot-com bubble, as the smart investors, Gates knew that he couldn't keep all his eggs in one basket and has to diversify, even though Microsoft turned out to be way more valuable than anyone could have imagined back then. So before the dot-com bubble burst, Gates sold most of his Microsoft stocks. It seems like he was predicting the crash at some of the other entrepreneurships back then, like Mark Cuban. Today, he owns only 1.3% of the company, and it's still the largest individual investors. That's tiny percentage equals to almost $20 billion. But wait for the second, isn't Bill Gates worth over $105 billion? Yes, and that's what makes him different from his fellow tech billionaires. To find out why Bill Gates is still the richest person in the world, we have to take a deep look into the investing portfolio. One of his biggest is best positioned in the Berkshire Hathaway. He owns at least 54 million shares of the company, which almost around $11.2 billion. Berkshire Hathaway is unlike any other company. It's a holding company that invests in the multiple different companies such as the Apple, Bank of America, IBM, General Motors, Goldman Sachs, and owns entire other companies like the Jayco or Duracell. These companies are not from the one particular industry, so if the one then goes down, others would probably compare. And remember that these companies weren't randomly picked by the greatest investors of our time, Warren Buffett, since he managed Berkshire Hathaway. Gates also owned 18.6 million shares of the Waste Management Incorporations, which almost around $2 billion. The company dated back in the 1968 and offer environment services to nearly 21 million residential industries, municipal and commercial customers in the United States, Canada, and Puerto Rico. With 26,000 collections and trust fund ventures, the company has the largest trucking fleet in the waste industry. Over the last 5 years, the stock price grew by the 113%. That's really a lot considering that it also paid 2% dividend throughout the years. It makes it one of the best investments one can make, and since it provides essential services, it's a safe long-term investment. Gates is also an investor in the Canadian National Railway Company. He owns 17.1 million shares with the market value of around 2 billion. It's Canada's largest railway in terms of the both revenue and the physical size of its rail network, spanning Canada from the Atlantic coast and Nova Scotia to the Pacific coast in the British Columbia across about 20,000 road miles. It's a public company that employs 24,000 people, and as of the October 2020, it has market capitalization approximately 104 billion Canadian dollars. And surprisingly, the company handled the current crisis pretty well. The stocks plummeted because of the pandemic back in the March, but the company quickly regained its positions and it is now 30% higher than the pre-pandemic level. Bill Gates love dividend stocks, and the Canadian National Railway is such a company with the dividend yield of the 1.7%. Gates also holds $1.5 billion worth of the Caterpillar Incorporations. It designs, develops, engineers, manufactures, market, and sells machinery, engines, financial products, and insurance to customers via worldwide dealer network. It is the world's largest constructions equipment manufacturer. Its trade in the New York Stocks Exchange at over $90 billion market capitalizations. I think by now you get the price. Bill Gates has invested in the wide variety of the safe, stable, and promoted companies to keep his wealth increasing years after years. He also holds $1.5 billion of the Walmart stocks and many other companies. It makes him immature to the crisis and volatility and let his wealth keep growing exponentially in the long run. So even if the Microsoft goes bankrupt tomorrow or the US economy falls into the long-lasting depressions, Gates' investments are all over the world, which makes him the safe from the any turmoil. That's why he's been the richest man in the world for 18 years. You also have to take into account that the Gates has donated around $30 billion to different causes, from the fighting malaria to solving sanitation problems in Africa, to invest in billions into the companies that are working on the vaccine to COVID-19. If you take a look at his fellow billionaire Jeff Bezos, things are different. Of course, he is significantly wealthier with $185 billion, but most of his wealth is tied to Amazon, so if Amazon falls for one reason or another, his wealth will follow up. But Bezos is smart and he perfectly understands that. That's why he is slowly selling his stake at Amazon and investing them into different companies and industries. In 2018, he sold $2.8 billion worth of Amazon stocks. This year so far, he has sold $7.2 billion. And that's not only an accident. The pandemic caused many investors to invest heavily in the stocks market, since the tech companies provide to be immune to the crisis, especially when the Fed spread it into the injected hundreds of the billions of dollars into the market, which pushed the technology stocks, including Amazon, to skyrocket. It's difficult to predict the future of Amazon because the stocks market is overvalued, but at the same time, Amazon is going to play a vital role in the distributing the vaccine, since it has been building its delivery fleet for over 2 decades. Bezos has invested a huge chunk of his cash into Blue Origin and aerospace manufacturers that's trying to build reusable rockets to make space exploring more affordable. The company has made a good progress. Bezos pledged to invest $1 billion into this company every year. It's difficult to find exact valuations of this company since it's the private company, but it's probably worth billions. However, we will be able to know the exact number in the company deciding to go public. Bezos also purchased the Washington Post for $250 million and held 3% stake in the popular businesses news website Business Insider. Having the few media companies can have you some positive press. He also invested in the multiple other companies like the Zogdog or Nextdoor platform that connect people. He has also invested 112 million in the Airbnb, 37 million dollars in the Uber. So if one day you become profitable, Bezos is going to take a portion of that. He is also a big believer in the cloud businesses. So he had invested in the companies such as the Workday Incorporations. He is also real estate investors. His 165,000 acre corn ranch in the Texas was acquired as the base of the operations for his aerospace company Blue Origin, and serves as the test site to verification land mandate support the new Shepherd record. Besides that, he owns houses across the country, from the Beverly Hills to 10,000 square foot apartment to the Century Tower in the Manhattan that he has paid over $8 million. He also has a house in Washington, D.C., where he spent $28 million. His neighbors are Obama's. In short, Bezos is rich, but over 95% of his wealth comes from Amazon. Over the next decades, Bezos will keep $7 billion of the dollars worth of the Amazon stocks and invest in the wide variety of the industries, exact as the Gates did. If Gates did sell Microsoft stakes, he would worth a lot more since in 1986, when Microsoft went public. Gates owned 49% of the company. Of course, after 9 stock splits, his shares would have been diluted anyways. But regardless, we would own significant chunk of Microsoft, and since most of its value, $1.6 trillion, he would be as wealthy, if not wealthier, than Bezos. The future isn't predictable, and it's far better to have diversified portfolio than having all of your wealth tied to the one company. If you have enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and it really helps to the video to get promoted, and subscribe to this more similar videos. Thanks for watching, and until next time.